From Anshei Sphard-Beth Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of 4 aspects of redemption. Parshat Va'era. We look at the beginning of the Parsha, we have the famous 4 languages of redemption, on basis of which the Midrash and the Yerushalmi say that that's why we have 4 cups, because it says, after all, V'hotzeti, I will take you out of the suffering of Egypt. V'itzalti, I will save you from their work, from the hard back-breaking work. V'ga'alti, I'll redeem you with a strong hand. U'ishvatim gedolim, with great plagues. And v'lakachti etchem li'lam, and I will take you to be my people. I will be your God. These are the 4 languages of redemption. But what do they really mean? How are they different from one another? I mean, saving, redeeming, it all sounds kind of the same. What really is the difference, and what is the Torah trying to tell us? So the Rabbi Yosef Bechor Shor, a rabbi from the Tosfot school from France, he lays out right away that the message is redemption will not take place right away. The Netziv, also picking up on this theme that there's a gradual approach here to redeeming the Jews that can't be redeemed in 1 second. He says there were stages within that year in which the plagues took place, in which the Jews were gradually redeemed. Firstly, from Misivotam, from the oppression. The oppression ended with Arov, the plague of the mixed animals, whatever Arov means. From that point on, the work stopped. They didn't have to do all the work. Then with Barad, when it came to the hail, that was where the Jewish people began to be honored by these nations. So V'hotzeti means to take you out of the sevel, out of the oppression. V'itzalti etchem avodatam, the second stage to get out of the work, and the work ended with the plague of Barad. And then the redemption, they were actually free. Ga'alti etchem, the third stage, is makat bechorot, the plague of the firstborn. That's when they were actually let free. And then, presumably, the next stage would be Mount Sinai or something like that. The Kli Yakar, and after him, later the Rav Shamshon and Fal Hirsch, notice 3 aspects of what we want to get out of. And it goes back to the Brit Ben Hamtarim, that which Abraham was promised by God, that we would suffer in Egypt. Gigeri Yazachar, we would be strangers. Va'avadum v'iniotam. Va'avadum, they would make us work. V'iniotam, they would oppress us. And it really goes in the opposite direction. First, you get out of the inui, the affliction, the suffering. Then you get out of the slavery that you're not actually slaves at all. And then finally, you get out of the ger. The redemption is the sense that sometimes your cousin redeems you because you fall in hard times. So someone bails you out, that you're no longer a stranger in a strange land. These are the 3 aspects until you get to the 4th, which is a more spiritual kind of a thing. The Sforno, Italian commentator, V'hotzeti, he says to take you out from the beginning. He claims that from the beginning of the Makot, things calmed down. They really didn't have that much of oppression from that point on. But V'hitzalti echem orotam, to be saved from the work totally ended when they went out. When they went out from Ramses, Vayisumi Ramses, B'chodesh HaRishon, when they went from Ramses on Pesach, that's when they actually get out of Egypt, totally out of the slavery. V'ga'alti etchem, I'll redeem you. I don't understand why, but he says that with the drowning of the Egyptians, somehow that's the redemption. Why he proves it, because Vayosh Hashem bayomahu, that on that day they were saved, redeemed, very similar, Gula, Yeshua. That's when we were redeemed, and presumably the Lakachti is presumably Sinai. The Ramban tries to give 4 distinct things. Again, I'm not fully appreciative of everything he says, but this is what he says. V'hotzeti, I'll take you out from their land. It sounds like from their sevel, from their oppression, but he says no, from the land, getting out of Egypt altogether. It starts right away. That's number 1. Number 2, Itzalti, I'll save you. You won't even be have to pay sort of a taxation. Sometimes you go to a different land, but you're still taxed by the taskmaster. He says, no, you will not be taxed. Ga'alti, says that redemption there has to be tit for tat. There has to be a payment that redeems you. So, well, if you redeem your cousin, you pay money, you get the land. You get your cousin out of slavery. Well, here, God gives the punishments, the plagues to the Egyptians, and for that, he gets the Jews. The Jews go free. That's the redemption in a technical sense. And Lakachti, again, Har Sinai, Mount Sinai. The Meshech Chochmah has a whole theory, which again, one needs to look at it more carefully to figure out exactly how it works, but he claims that each one of the 4 cups relates, in terms of what we say over that cup, relates to the 4 languages of redemption. But more broadly, he says, the word Lahotzi, to take someone out, we think of, coming out of the womb. And that's where the Jews came, goy mikerav goy. It says in Deuteronomy that God took us, one nation from another. It was difficult. Just like a baby is ensconced in the mother, so too the Jews were totally assimilated within the Egyptian nation. It had to be taken out. Hitzalti etchem. That's lotzi, that's to take out like a baby. And to save, usually you use the word to save when there's a life-threatening situation, so that we were saved from death. And galti, he saved us. That's the redemption is getting out of slavery, because sometimes you redeem your cousin from slavery, as it says at the end of Leviticus, of Vayikra. And of course, Lakati, again, the Torah, and the idea that, not just getting the Torah, but the idea that God would be our king, which the Jews articulated as splitting the sea and elsewhere. Now, the 4 cups, more broadly speaking, the exact details, take a look at the Meshech Chochmah there, or Meir Simcha of Dvinsk. But generally, he says, cups relate to Kiddush. Kiddush has to do with sanctification. It has to do with the Jews sanctifying themselves, so they kept themselves separate to the degree that God was able to find them in Egypt and take them out. Had we been fully assimilated, he wouldn't physically be able to find us to get us out of Egypt. And therefore we celebrate that by sanctification, the Kiddush, the Hallel, the benching, and the second half of the Hallel as a way of showing this sanctification, this Havdalah. Sometimes wine is over Havdalah, to separate ourselves. It shows we separate ourselves. You have to have kosher wine, Jewish wine, to separate ourselves from the Gentiles. That's all part of why we have the 4 cups, to remember it was because of the Jewish distinctiveness in Egypt. We retained some element of distinctiveness that we were able to get out of Egypt at all. If we put all this together, this thought and that, I would say, in summation, and in my humble estimation, these would be the 4 languages. V'hotzeti, it's not, you would think v'hotzeti means to go out of Egypt. No, it doesn't say that. It says to go out of the suffering. So the first stage is to get out of the suffering. And also, as Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg said in Florida, to not get so used to being suffering. Sometimes we get used to bad situations. We don't want to have so much savlanut and patience for the situation. Number 2, v'hitzalti, is going to save us. That's our lives. That sometimes when you have slavery, there's death. Slavery, he beats you over the head and you die, God forbid. So v'hitzalti, we have to understand that when you get out of slavery, you save your lives. You save Jewish lives. The rabbis have so many stories of Jews, babies who were thrown into the bricks, thrown in the river, people who were beaten to death. There's no question, when you have slavery, there's not enough life. And Ga'alti, redemption, we said, comes from someone taking you out of your dire situation and redeeming you, bailing you out. It has to do with the going out itself. And Lakachti, Echem li la'am, I became your nation. Now, when were the Jews chosen as God's nation? You could say it's the splitting of the sea, but I'd rather it be that part of the redemption itself. Because at the Seder, we talk about the 4 languages that happened that night. And the redemption, the taking us to be his nation, don't forget, when we went out of Egypt, God was choosing us. He was taking us out of Egypt. He treating us special. Asher bachar banu mikol amim, the first stage is God chose us by taking us out of Egypt. And that explains why we don't include the 4th language, which seems to be a natural. We would also include bringing us to the land of Israel, because that's a separate stage. 40 years later, it's not just getting out of something, but going into something else. The all the 4 stages could be described as something that happened with the Exodus itself, before the Exodus and during the Exodus, but not something that takes place later, either at the sea or all the way down when they get to the land of Israel. So these are the languages of redemption. But finally, if we ask ourselves a question, so what does it mean for us? After all, the Sphard-Beth says that it's not just we historically went out of Egypt. Every day we're trying to get out of Egypt again. So what do we have to get out of? In order to get out of Egypt, number one, we need to get out of the sevel. Sometimes there's just a lot of worries about different things, and that lack of peace of mind is our first slavery we need to get out of. Number two, to be saved from the avodatam, the work. Life is meant to work. Adam la'amal yulad. We're born to work. But that sense of work should not distract us from our avodas Hashem, for our goals in life, what our ultimate priorities are. Yes, we may spend most of our time on the work that we do, but ultimately we have to be focused on what the ultimate goals are: family, God, meaning, life, and all the values we hold dear. Ga'alti is redeemed from Egypt itself. What's the Egypt? Egypt are bad influences. Egypt are various troubles. Geula, as Rav Bick of Yeshivat Har Tzion explained, the Geula, the blessing of Geula in Shemona Esrei, we want to be redeemed from our troubles in general, different troubles that we have that keep us away from God. And finally, Lakachti, our ultimate goal, if you want to really be out of Egypt, is to be close with God. That's our ultimate goal. We were too tethered to Pharaoh. Whatever he wanted, he was God. Ultimately, we want to be free from worries, free from troubles, free even from the grunge of daily life, so that we can indeed achieve a closeness with God. That's the ultimate getting out of Egypt that we all want to achieve. Thank you for joining us here at the Anshei Sphard-Beth Emeth congregation here in Memphis, Tennessee, for a discussion of the various parshiot, holidays, how-to videos. And thanks to Jason Lefkowitz, our producer. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit asb.org.